Sarah Michelle and Abdulmajid Burhan. Your Excellencies, with leave of this House, may I request the defense side to introduce themselves.
Much obliged, Your Excellency. I'm among intervening the lead counsel on the side of the defense. Together with me are my co-counsel, Nana Mbalarabe,
Much obliged,
and Loka David.
Much obliged, Your Excellency.
With sake of this honorable court, I would love to let the prosecution proceed.
Much obliged, Your Excellencies. For purposes of court recording, I'm Yesha Saradafi. Your Excellencies, we intend to use 30 minutes of this court's time as
You have 25 minutes.
Much obliged, Your Excellencies. We intend to use 25 minutes of this House. I, the lead, shall take 10 minutes to state the facts. As in November, starvation was reported within the city due to the damaged infrastructure that was caused by these confrontations, Your Excellency. This led to damage of water streams, thus leading to the outbreak of cholera, Your Excellency. Still in December, TAF supervised the evacuation of several civilians, Your Excellency. Your Excellency, on 4th Feb, TAF suspected Red Gerard to have crossed the border and ordered all TAF units to fire at will. At 6, a convoy of 8 vehicles passed carrying basic needs, and on those vehicles, the emblem of Red Cross was clearly visible on them, and furthermore, the personnel in these vehicles were wearing uniforms showing the emblem of the Red Cross, Your Excellency. At 7:45, the approach of an unidentified vehicle was reported, but the communication was pitched, Your Excellency. The TAF fired on the convoy, wounding 8 humanitarian personnel, leading to the amputation of 1 doctor, Your Excellency. Given the fact that Saudi Arabia is a citizen of Timeria and that two territories signed the convention, Your Excellency, the prosecution believes that this House has jurisdiction to handle this matter. Your Excellency, I beg to proceed by classifying an armed conflict. The case of prosecutor Vasdas Kotadi came up with 2 tests to classify an armed Much obliged, Your Excellency. In establishing an armed conflict, Your Excellency, 2 tests should be put into consideration. 2 principles should be put into consideration. That is protractedness and organization, Your Excellency. The trial chamber in the case of Ramesh Haridinaj quoted the Tadi case but pointed out key issues, Your Excellency. And these key issues included intensity of the armed conflict rather than the duration. So in this case, they look at the intensity, what did these confrontations do, what cause related to the facts. Much obliged, Your Excellency. So looking at the intensity of the case.
It is caused during the conflict. If we are to go back to our paragraph, that is starting from paragraph 12, specifically on 4th May 2012, before the attack was launched, up to 30th July. If you look at the time period compared to the casualties, yes, the prosecution can affirm to this honorable court that the number of 52 innocent civilians that died as a result of the conflict is a high intensity to be considered. Much obliged, Your Excellency.
Let me give an example where there is a protest in town and with the engagement of the police, a number of 52 people died. Does that render it an armed conflict?
Well, Your Excellency, considering the facts at hand before this honorable court, there has been an armed conflict that has been existing between the TAF and the LRA combatants. So basing on the time frame and the number of casualties that we have caused during this short period of time,
Council, what is the number of casualties? What I want.
if you are to proceed under paragraph yes, if you are to proceed under paragraph 23, Your Excellencies, under paragraph 23, specifically under this paragraph, we are seeing that a number of we are seeing a calculation of 1,500 civilians that we are evacuated as a result of the command that was given by the Commander Rivia, and basing on the fact at hand that the area of Belen has a population of 150,000 people. If you are to calculate the number of people that we evacuated, it is not proportional to the number of to the period that was given out during the intensity of evacuation.
The attack was such that it would cause incidental death or injury to civilian or damage or civilian objects, or widespread or long-term and several damages to the natural environment, and that such death or injury or damage would be of such an extent as to clearly excessive in relation to concrete and direct environmental advantage. Basing on, Your Excellencies, basing on paragraph 22, there were reports of starvation, damage on infrastructure, which is also referred to as civilian objects. There was, under paragraph 23, there were reported cases, or there was evacuation of 1,500 civilians.
Council, should we take what the prosecution believes? Or should this court base its decision on what you believe? You as the prosecution, should we base our decision on what you believe?
Much obliged, Your Excellency. If we are to refer ourselves to paragraph 23, as induced before this honorable court, we are seeing mortal remains of over 1,500 civilians evacuated. By the understanding, the prosecution understand that paragraph in a way that during the constant conflict before 25th of December, almost 1,500 civilians died in Dachi before the evacuations. By mere word of mortal remains, it is equivalent to millions of dead person. Meaning the TAF supervised the evacuation, meaning during the different attacks, the TAF and the RLF indulged themselves in, there was casualty of 1,500 civilians. Much obliged, Your Excellency.
Do you understand the meaning of what you
Yes, I do. Casualty, casualty can mean wounded people, death. So specifically here in this paragraph, we are talking of mortal remains, which makes the prosecution much confident to apply the word casualty under mortal remains. Pardon? Yes, please. If you look at Wikipedia, if you search the meaning of mortal remains in Wikipedia, which is persuasive in nature, it can give you the correct meaning of mortal remains, meaning that the dead body of a person. So if you are to refer the meaning of mortal remains under Wikipedia, which is persuasive in nature, to paragraph 23, indeed, yes, there has been a loss of life of civilians amounting to 1,500. Much obliged, Excellency.
Mr. Michel, this is for the prosecution, and I'll be proceeding with count 2. The prosecution adduces evidence that Colonel Zander Rivia committed crimes under Article 8(2)(b), Roman numeral 3 of the Rome Statute. For intentionally directing attacks against personnel, in installations, material units, of vehicles involved in humanitarian assistance or peacemaking mission in accordance with the Charter of the United Nations along as they are entitled to be international law of armed conflicts. The prosecution will use the element of crime to prove that Colonel Zander was liable for the crimes committed under command responsibility. And element 1 is that the perpetrator directed an attack. Rule 152 of the customary
Will attack it as already submit on element to the other element.
Submit on element to the other element. The second element is the object of attack was personnel, installations, material units, or vehicles involved in humanitarian assistance. This is evidenced in paragraph 20, line 6 to 10. Paragraph 20, line 6 to 10.
Yes.
When orders of evacuation within 48 hours were made, but after the 48 hours, over 30,000 residents of Valen evacuated the city and 2,000 of the evacuated.
Council,
Yes?
are you handling the council?
Yeah, I'm handling the county.
And you tackling paragraph 20.
I'm tackling paragraph 20.
Counties in respect to Directive 66.
Your Excellencies, for the purposes of this court record, my name is Abdul Majid, prosecuting Colonel Alexander Rivia, and count 3. Your Excellencies, the crime of declaring no quota will be given under Article 8, Clause 2, Article 8, Clause 8, Paragraph B, subparagraph Roman numeral 12 of the Rome Statute. The prosecution moves to prosecute Colonel Zenda Rivia under elements of crime to the Rome Statute of grant of no quota. The elements of the crime are here under captured and well submitted upon. The prosecution may beg to proceed. Much obliged to the Excellency. Under the first element of crime, the perpetrator ordered or declared that there shall be no survivors. Your Excellencies, if we are to look at Rule 46 of the customary international humanitarian law, it provides for Article 4 of the Additional Protocol 2 that prohibits ordering that there shall be no survivors. On the report of the United Nations Secretary General on establishment of special courts to Sierra Leone, noted that the provision of Article 4 had long been considered part of customary international law, thereby declaring that no quota will be given is a crime in non-international armed conflicts. Your Excellencies, the prosecution affirms to this court that Colonel Zander Rivia initiated a shoot-on-sight policy to anyone seen on the walls, intended that there shall be no survivors, as established under the facts, paragraph 21, line 4. The prosecution may beg to proceed to element 2. Your Excellency. Your Excellency, the prosecution may beg to proceed under element 2. Under element 2, such declaration was given in order to threaten an adversary or conduct hostilities that there shall be no survivors. Your Excellencies, if we are to refer ourselves to paragraph 20, line 8 to 9, leaflets and text messages sent by the TAF to the LRF fighters inside Velen was hostile, a threat to RLF as evidenced in paragraph 20. When the TAF sent a message to the RLF saying that surrender now or be prepared to fight to the bitter end, by the virtue of the Rome Statute and the elements of crime, such messages, Your Excellencies, are intended to threat, conduct hostilities on the RLF, that there shall be no survivors.
Why is it written that those leaflets were meant for the RLF?
Yes, Your Excellencies, I'm much obliged. If we are right, that the declaration was given in order to threaten an adversary. An adversary, in its meaning, can refer to an armed group. So, in this case here at hand, we are referring an adversary. In this current case, is the RLF. With him, TAF are in combatant with.
But all I see there is him exercising the precautionary principle and the principle of humanity. Him sending text messages and leaving leaflets, ordering, giving a period of over 48 hours for the civilians to evacuate. Do you call that threatening messages? Because according to me, I see that it is humanity.
Well, Your Excellencies, I'm much obliged. If we are to stick ourselves to paragraph 20, mere sending of a text message that surrender now or be prepared to fight to bitter end. That's the last statement. Be prepared to fight to the bitter end itself amount to threat.
That statement was sent to the RLF.
Yes,
and
please.
we are seeing he distinguished between the RLF and the civilians.
But Your Excellencies, I'm much obliged. If we were to look at the mode in which these text messages were sent, it was sent in form of leaflets and not direct to the LRF members. But
those leaflets were sent to the civilians to leave the place since Velen was under the RLF what? It was the RLF, it had its forces in what? In Velen. So if you're telling me that these leaflets were sent to the RLF, I don't get you. They were sent for these civilians to evacuate. I see him distinguishing between the armed group and the what? And the civilians. And that is one of the principles. Looking at that, he's observing the principles of IHL. So if you're telling me that he sent these to...
Your Excellency, I'm much obliged, but...
Council, put into consideration that with those precautions, approximately 30,000 residents evacuated Velen.
Yes, much obliged, Your Excellencies. If I'm to draw our attention to paragraph 5, that gives us the approximate or estimated population of the Velen. We are seeing Velen has a population of 150,000 people. By the mere fact that the TAF issued messages to the civilians in Velen and ordering them that there has been a 48-hour ultimatum given for evacuation, to me and the prosecution believe that 48-hour was not an appropriate time given the population of the Velen, because by the virtue of the provision,
the same facts are clear under paragraph 20. They are saying approximately 30,000 evacuated before the expiration of 48 hours. So if 30,000 managed to leave before 48 hours, so you want to tell us that the other hours were used for fighting?
Yes, Your Excellencies, I'm much obliged. My purpose of this argument here, or of my submission, is the TAF commander will have taken due diligence in making sure there should be an extension of the time limit of 48 hours, given that within shortest period of time there has been some evacuation of 30,000 people, which is not proportional to the population of 150,000 people living in Velen. The prosecution may beg to proceed to element 3. Thank you. I'm much obliged, Your Excellency. If you are proceeding to element 3.
At your time is up.
Yes, please. The prosecution under element 3, that the perpetrator was in position of executive command. The prosecution further under that element applies the rule, rule 152 of Kasim IHL, that Colonel Zandarivia was in effective control over his subordinate forces when he issued the directive to all the TAF units making responsible for the crimes committed pursuant to his orders. The prosecution may proceed to element 4. Conduct took place in the context of and was associated with an international armed conflict. But the fact...
Submit on element 5.
Element 5. I'm much obliged, Your Excellency. The perpetrator was aware of functional circumstances that established the existence of an armed conflict. The prosecution proceeds to paragraph 14 of the facts at hand in the court, where weapons were captured by the TAF during clashes with the RLF. The few ATF operations inside the walls of Belen led to massive casualties of the
Basing on the judgment of the court
building to building.
for June, where it adopted a strategic decision, the court went to state that for protractedness to be there, we shall look at the intensity of the conflict. That's where court went ahead. That's why we see court in the case of Juna Carlos Abela versus Argentina consider the intensity, even though that conflict only lasted for 30 hours, but it went to consider the intensity of the armed violence.
Apply the test to the facts.
Your Excellency, going to apply the test of intensity to the facts, we know that the case of the court in the case of prosecutor versus Boskowski laid a few indicative factors that show that intensity exists. And these factors we have the use of weapons of massive destruction, presence of number of casualties, and then we see also the ceasefire agreement. Your Excellency, facts are clear under paragraph 18 and paragraph 7 that where we see explosives were being used, and still under paragraph 7 we see a semi-automatic weapon was used by an armed man which killed 52 people. Your Excellency, basing on this, I would confidently say that this amounted to intensity. Still, to elaborate more on intensity, when we look at the number of casualties, I would love to draw the attention of this honorable court under paragraph 18, where we see there were a great number of casualties of the staff and also of the civilians. Your Excellencies, if I may draw the attention of this honorable court, under paragraph 37 of these facts, we see that the ceasefire agreements were being signed by the government of El Salita with Red Gerald on behalf of the RLF. Having proven all this, Your Excellency, it would be right for us to say that the test of intensity was clearly, or has been clearly proven in the Greater Team area. Going ahead to prove the test of organization, still the case of Boskowski played a few indicative factors that show that organization existed. And we have the ability to recruit. Yes, yes.
You don't have a case known as Boskowski.
I beg to retract my statement. In the case of prosecutor versus Boskowski, the court held that the court gave a few indicative factors that we need to put into place in order for this test to be deemed into existence. We have this
count one as asserted by the prosecution.
How many minutes?
Your Excellency, I'll use 5 minutes of this honorable.
More than 5.
Your Excellency, Kanazanda Rivia is charged on the basis of individual statute. The work primary intentionally launching an attack in the knowledge that such an attack will cause incidental loss of life or injury to civilian, damage to civilian objects, widespread long-term and severe damage to the natural environment, which would clear military advantage anticipated. Your Excellency, the defense in verbatim denies the previous and vexatious allegations as stated by the prosecution. Your Excellency, invoking Article 30 of the Rome Statute, knowledge and intent are key elements for someone to be held liable on an account. Your Excellency, I would like to draw the attention of this honorable court to the facts under paragraph 28, which shows that Colonel Sander Rivia ordered all the TF units to fire at will if they saw Red Girls. Red Girls belong to the enemy conflicting party with the TAA, and therefore fire at will did not, if I go to the literal meaning of fire at will, it means that someone can do something at his own will, or its option and it is open, meaning that our client did not have the intention to kill Red Girls, but rather wanted to weaken the armed conflict he was fighting with. To move on, Your Excellency, it should be noted that Rule 1 of the customary international humanitarian law provides that parties to a conflict must all times
Your Excellencies, I'm a local person appearing for defense, representing Kanozana area on man responsibility.
Bear in mind that you have 5 minutes.
Man responsibility as stipulated clearly in Article 28A of the Home Statute and 8 2B of the MS of the crime, the Home Statute, Your Excellency, which is in accordance with the Rule 152 of the customary international humanitarian law, Excellency. Your Excellency, I'm going to handle these elements in a wholesome because of the time. Your Excellency, if I may draw this court's attention, Excellency, the prosecution, in the process of hunting for muddy fish, they ended up going with the snake for which they swam, Excellency. We are defending an innocent person who is well aware and who is more knowledgeable to the principles of international humanitarian law, which aim to safeguard and preserve life, Your Excellency, as it is clearly stipulated under the principle of humanity, in line with the Rule 87 of the customary international humanitarian law, Excellency. As I may close the draw attention, Your Excellency, under paragraph 34, Your Excellency, we are seeing our commander in his conversation with Lieutenant Metis, when he asked his first response, how many vehicles do you see, Your Excellency? From this question, he was well aware and anticipating, Your Excellency, that there were delegates from International Committee of Red Cross coming to that area to ensure that they make supplies to civilian, Excellency. And when we go further, Excellency, when we get to the conversation, Your Excellency, Lieutenant Metis is saying 6 vehicles prepared to engage. By Excellency, we are seeing our client, the commander, saying, do you see the Red Cross? This is in line correctly with the Article 12 of the Additional Protocol, Your Excellency. We provide for the distinction.
Are you sure he said, do you see the Red Cross?
He said, do you see a cross on the vehicle, Your Excellency? Sorry for that. Do you see a cross, Your Excellency? This was to ensure that he adheres to the principles of precaution and distinction, and even made to ensure that the TAF Unit 52 does not engage in wrong people, Your Excellency.
What does the principle of precaution provide for?
Excellent. The principle of precaution, as clearly provided for, on is Rule 22, 15 and 16. 15 and 16 of the customary humanitarian law, Your Excellency. It provides, in summary, that you must take precautionary measures to ensure that the civilians are not hurt in the process of an armed conflict, Your Excellency.
Marry it to the facts.
To that of the facts at hand, from the response from our client that do you see a cross on the left, was taking the precaution to ensure that TAF Unit 52 does not engage young people.
Was that sufficient enough?
Excellency, it was more than sufficient to ensure that the safety of these delegates is preserved. He took that, and even in that process, Lord, Your Excellency, ensured that there's clear distinction between the TAF and the delegates whom we are expecting. Excellency, if I go further, our client observed clearly, in line with Rule 1, 7, and 8, the principles. Rules 1, 7, and 8, the principle of distinction, Your Excellency. We are seeing, Your Excellency, under paragraph 30, if I may draw your attention, Your Excellency, in his communication with the company, ensured that the close communication with the company as they were entering the Eastern Gate, Excellency. This was to ensure that the humanitarian code, which has been created as a result of the agreement between both parties, that these people is safe, Your Excellency. We don't see any way in the facts, Your Excellency, that our client
ordered the shooting at the convoy. And we not anywhere that our clan had the intention that the convoy be a target, a military target by the tough unit excellence. If I may closely draw attention to paragraph 32, unit 52 in the south had been shortly attacked by RLF, Your Excellency.
Council submit on element 2.
Excellence, element 2. The object of the attack was personal installation of materials or vehicles involved in humanitarian assistance or peacekeeping mission in accordance with the Charter of the United States, Your Excellency.